why is Boris Johnson incapable of coming up with a clear, sensible, understandable set of rules that work for everyone? Let's look at some history. Boris Johnson went to Eton. That's a school that paid £45,000 as a settlement to a former teacher who said that she did half of Prince Harry's art A-level for him. Not an establishment notorious then for sticking to the rules. One of his own masters from Eton said this: Boris doesn't bother with the rules, so even Eton thinks that Boris doesn't care about the rules. He then went to Oxford, where he joined the men-only Bullingdon Club, a drinking organisation, and we know a lot about that because a woman who worked as a recruiter for the Bullingdon Club for the exact same years that Boris was there says this: the whole culture was to get extremely drunk and exert vandalism. Every time someone was elected, they had to have their room smashed to pieces. People talk about the Bullingdon Club trashing places, but it was serious criminal damage. She says Bullingdon Club members found it amusing if people were intimidated or frightened by their behaviour. I remember them walking down the street in Oxford in their tails, chanting "Buller, Buller," and smashing bottles along the way. And you might think that he fell in with a bad crowd and has, been given some bad press because of their behaviour. Let's clarify that. She says Boris was one of the big beasts of the club. He was up for anything. They treated certain types of people with absolute disdain and referred to them as plebs or grockles. Their attitude was that women were there for their entertainment. And he has apologised for his membership of the Bullingdon Club, but he still greets former members with cries of "Buller, Buller, Buller." So not that sorry, eh? Then he went and worked for the Times, and he was sacked for breaking journalistic rules and making up a quote that wasn't true. And it's a quote from his own godfather, so he seems to be breaching the basic rules of how to behave respectfully to your own family as well. Then he went to work for the Telegraph. Did I say the Times? The Telegraph. He went to work for the Telegraph and he wrote more lies, breaking journalistic code. Then he was working for the Spectator, and again he was caught lying. He was asked to resign, and he then refused to do so. He wouldn't even stick to the rule about resign when you're told to. Then he was with the Conservative Party. He was Vice Chair and Shadow Arts Minister. He was sacked from those roles by Michael Howard for lying. Then he was Mayor of London. He broke the rules, it would appear, to dish out grants to his friend Jennifer R. Curry. Then he was part of the Vote Leave campaign, which broke the funding rules on how political campaigns are funded. Then he was in Theresa May's government. He resigned from that and almost immediately broke ministerial code by accepting a job back at the Telegraph as a columnist. He did that 3 days after he resigned. Ministerial code says that you should wait a month. He then became Prime Minister. He broke the rules by suspending Parliament when he wasn't supposed to in order to push his Brexit agenda through. He broke the rules again, misleading the Queen about what was going on. During the first phase of lockdown, the rules said that people who had a vulnerable family member, such as someone who was pregnant, the whole household needed to isolate to protect that individual. At the time, Boris's girlfriend was pregnant, and yet Boris continued to go to work, and you might imagine perhaps they were living in different households, but then she caught coronavirus from him, so they clearly weren't. So even his original lockdown rules, he wasn't sticking to them, and now he's handed out this new set of rules that make no sense and are absolute gibberish, and we all can't really see what is supposed to happen. But there's some very clear parts of the new rules, aren't there? For example, cleaners and nannies should go back to work. He's very clear about the rules for cleaners and nannies. So what does this tell us? Boris Johnson thinks that rules are not for him. He thinks that rules are for cleaners and nannies, or as he probably calls them, plebs and grockles. What an absolute scumbag.